This cannot be ignored. After starting the season with a 92-point output against the San Antonio Spurs, your Mavericks have stepped up their offensive game, right? In game 2, we still lost to the Washington Wizards. Vibes were not good. Okay, we had a lot of unforced turnovers. We're going to talk more about that in a second. But we stepped up to 107, right, from the 92-point showing. And then in game 3, which was a win, by the way, against the Toronto Raptors, we put up 139 points, okay? This cannot be ignored. Each game we're getting better with our offensive output. And some of it could just be chalked up as like, okay, that was one game, that was 2 games, we're just still shaking the dust off, whatever, right? But I am encouraged that after last night's victory over the Raptors, I look at the box score, and the Mavericks shot 58.8%, okay? That is something we can live with, can we not? So first, we're going to compare and contrast what we saw happen on Friday night against the Washington Wizards versus last night against the Toronto Raptors, okay? And maybe even look at a couple of things that we can expect tonight against OKC. But then, caution, hot tea. We've got a just tantalizing rumor today. Yeah, you're going to want to stick around for this one. And then also, to round out our show today, your advisor is cooking up a deal with the Charlotte Hornets. And it's a blockbuster, by the way. Stick around to find out who is lucky enough to join your Dallas Mavericks. And on the flip side, who is going to be Spartan kicked out of Dallas and onto a weird team out in the Eastern Conference. But now that you are just watering at the mouth, sitting on the edge of your seat in anticipation, here's a quick intro. My name is Ethan Clayton. I'm your host. Welcome to the party. And by party, I mean Dope Podcast. This is Your Mavs, a Dallas Mavericks podcast where all are welcome. But y'all better behave. Lots to talk about, so let's do this. So as I said at the start here, I want to compare and contrast what happened from Friday night to Sunday night, from the Washington Wizards matchup to the Toronto Raptors matchup. We liked one over the other, obviously, but let's unpack some of the differences here, and maybe we can start to highlight what's going to happen tonight against OKC. So the first big difference I want to point out is turnovers, okay? Now, on the box score, you're going to see that on Friday night against the Wizards, we had 21 turnovers, okay? That is a massive number just in and of itself. But then you look, a little bit, a layer deeper there, and about 8 of those were unforced turnovers, right? So just silly dribbling the ball off your foot or trying to do a no-look pass, but there's like not somebody in your peripheral like you thought there was. There was a lot of that happening on Friday night. And that led to Washington being able to run out in transition, and we were just kind of playing catch-up the entire time, right? Keyshawn George, shout out, man. What was that? A 34-point, 11 rebound, double-double. You're no Victor Wembanyama, but that was an impressive performance on both sides of the ball. So I'll give credit where credit is due real quick. But the Mavericks were chasing after guys like Keyshawn George the entire game because they could not take care of the ball. That wore them down really quickly. You started to see some fatigue set in the third quarter, right? That's kind of what happened in the first game against the Spurs. We were fatigued, we were turning the ball over, and they're just, whenever you combine those two things with not great shooting, okay, you're gonna dig yourself in a hole real fast, okay? So the Mavericks did that against the Washington Wizards, but then they kind of went on a fake run. I'm going to highlight really quickly, PJ Washington was a bright spot in that game against Washington. Cooper Flagg, especially in the fourth quarter, was a bright spot in that game. And then AD comes back into the game, and I'm not going to point fingers. I'm not going to badmouth. The run was over. Next thing you know, Keyshawn George had hit a couple more threes, and now we're down by 10 again. Okay, so that's kind of the big broad strokes of what happened with Washington. Now, fast forward to Sunday night against Toronto, there were still 20 turnovers. Okay, still not pretty basketball, especially in the first quarter, first half. Right, there was about 13 of those 20 turnovers. However, it looked like our transition defense had taken it up a notch, and we weren't giving up a lot of transition buckets to Toronto. So that was a huge step forward, that even though we weren't taking as good of care of the ball as we should be, we were getting out and running in transition. And it seemed like Toronto never was really able to get a true advantage over us, because we were running. We were making it happen. And we had a nice rotation going. By the way, when talking about rotation real quick, D'Angelo Russell played 29 minutes last night as opposed to the 8 minutes against the Washington Wizards. And guess what? He put up a team high plus 20 on the plus minus stats. Okay, so after making comments about about our shorthandedness at point guard, that Jason Kidd said that directly. It's like, okay, well, maybe I'll look in the mirror real quick. I'll see that we do have a actual point guard on the roster that we signed to be a stopgap point guard for while Kyrie's out. And I'm going to give him some runs, see what happens. And guess what? It was a good look. Now, D'Angelo didn't shoot the ball super well, at least not to start. He was 0-7. And every point at that point he had gotten at the free throw line. Then after that, he was 7 for 11 to finish out the night. And that included a couple of threes. It included a couple of and ones in the fourth quarter. He brought a lot of energy to the game. And that is a huge statistical difference from what we saw from D'Angelo in the first two nights. So I'm going to chalk that up as a huge win. So again, we were getting out in transition. We had a true point guard on the floor for a good long while. Very little Ryan Nembhard, by the way. But those are some of the things that I'm looking at. And then, comparing and contrasting AD's performance against Washington versus Toronto. There was very little long-range jumpers. I think he only shot 1 3, and he hit it. There weren't very many mid-range jumpers. There was a lot happening in the paint on the low post, him putting a body on somebody and just really backing him down. He shot very, very efficiently. I believe it was 11 for 14 from the field. That is what we want to see from AD moving forward, right? We don't need you roaming around on the wing unless you're just creating space for somebody to attack downhill, get the ball to the hoop. That was incredible, efficient basketball. And can I just talk about Cooper Flagg real quick? I mean, what a poster. What a poster. It is now the screensaver on my iPhone, that very poster. I'm going to look at that like a lot of times. I'm going to look at that highlight over and over and over, inject that directly into my veins. We need a lot of that coming into the night against OKC. And the whole idea of getting Cooper involved where he is on the attack, that is, I think, a recipe for seeing the Mavericks come out swinging against OKC. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. I want to see Max Christie starting the game, not Klay Thompson. Max Christie has been awesome. He has been a knockdown three-point shooter. He has been a terrific defender. Jason Kidd even compared him to PJ Washington in that he's doing everything for the Mavs right now. He's competing at a high level on both sides of the ball. We love to see it. PJ Washington's doing great. D'Angelo Russell showed promise in this last game. Max Christie is really stepping up. And oh my gosh, Cooper Flagg, the second rookie in NBA history to put up 20 points and have 0 turnovers. He and guess what? Kobe Bryant. Okay, that's a pretty cool little statistic there. Next, caution, hot tea. Now, again, I think I've outed myself a little bit that maybe I don't truly understand the definition of rumor. I don't have inside sources, right? Like you're getting everything that you would get from me secondhand. Like I'm following people like Marcel Martin from Mavericks Digest. I'm following Noah Weber for the Smoking Cuban. They're the ones that are getting all the inside connections. Okay. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to just scratch out rumors and call it speculation today. And then the speculation is going to tie directly into the trade package that your advisor has been cooking up. So let's dive into it. Speculation. Daniel Gafford did not make his season debut last night against the Toronto Raptors. And the reason for that is I think that they were being on a back-to-back. Maybe Daniel Gafford could have played last night, but I think they were saving him for tonight against OKC. Just imagine how different the vibes are going to be from our 0-2 start to all of a sudden we're 2-2. We beat OKC. We've got Daniel Gafford back. Now we have our full big man rotation happening. And that's what I think is going to happen. You can call it a rumor. You can just chat about it all you want on Twitter and see if it really manifests and sticks. Okay. But that's what I think is the reason I think Daniel Gafford was perfectly healthy to play against Toronto. But why not? Why risk anything whenever we need him in full force whenever we come to match up against OKC? So speaking of which, let's drive up his value. Let's let him play and look real good against big teams like OKC because we need his value to go up. I told you that I am making a big blockbuster trade today, okay? And this is in response to an incredible performance, an incredible individual performance over the weekend from LaMelo Ball. So many of you saw there was a 38-point, 13 rebound, 13 assist triple-double that LaMelo Ball had in their the Charlotte Hornets victory over the Washington Wizards, which how rude that the Charlotte Hornets can beat up on the Wizards, but we cannot. But that is beside the point. We'll get them next time. But seeing that performance really got my wheels spinning a little bit, okay? That kind of bucket getting, okay, where if you watch the highlights, there was not a shot that he was afraid to take. Now, sometimes that can be a downfall. Sometimes it can be an efficiency issue. But guys, the court vision, the speed, the length that he has as a point guard, I see that as a positive on both sides of the ball. His ability to just step back and take threes. By the way, that stat line, 38, 13, and 13, I think that's going to remind you of one of the all-time great Mavericks that was still mind-blowingly traded last season. But yeah, that 38, 13, 13 had me thinking, Melo is young. This could fit the Cooper Flagg timeline super well. He would be a number one scoring option immediately, okay? And think about this. Whenever Kyrie returns, we would have Melo at the 1, Kyrie at the 2, Cooper at the 3 in his natural position, PJ in the 4 at his natural position, and then AD at the 5, right? I'm still going to stick to my guns here. I want Derek Lively coming off the bench as 5. And as we've done before, we're trading Daniel Gafford. We're trading Klay Thompson. And I'm sorry, Mavs fans, to make this trade package more attractive to someone like Charlotte, who maybe doesn't want to get rid of their franchise cornerstone. I'm going to go ahead and add Najee Marshall to the equation. Now, I'm not going to pretend that immediately Charlotte's going to be like, you know what? Tell you what, that's a great idea. Let's make this trade, okay? But they are lacking at the center position. Maybe they want to develop Ryan Kalkbrenner. He's going to be the future of their roster at that position. But right now, they don't have a starting caliber center. Hello, Daniel Gafford. Then, they have a really crowded guard rotation right now, but they don't have a lot of three-point shooting. Hello, Klay Thompson, right? They would still have a floor general after making this trade because they have Colin Sexton, who, by the way, on an expiring contract, maybe the Hornets could set themselves up to make an aggressive run at another point guard in the offseason, but take what they can get from Melo. Again, Gafford, Klay Thompson, and Najee Marshall, he's just a positive everywhere he goes on both sides of the ball. So I think it's a somewhat attractive trade package. And to sweeten the deal, I guarantee you Charlotte is going to ask for a first-round draft pick. That is the only thing about this that I'm iffy about, okay? Building around Cooper for the future, we want to have as many first-round picks as possible. But are any of them going to turn into someone like LaMelo Ball? I don't know. He's a very unique talent. He's an elite playmaker. He's a shooter. I just really think that he could fit super well on this roster with the flow offense that we're running, with the speed, the court vision, his ability to get the ball to guys really in the blink of an eye. Okay. I think he would fit incredibly well, match the timeline. But what I'm really curious to hear your thoughts in, and please sound off in the comment section. Would it be worth making a 3-for-1 trade and adding a first-round draft pick to add a number one offensive option today in LaMelo Ball? I think so. Maybe you disagree. Just let me know what you're thinking. Now, that I'm going to start wrapping up here. Again, the updates, we're seeing two very different teams from what we saw against the Spurs and Wizards over in this hand, and now all of a sudden we've got a team that can put up 139 points. They're stepping up their offensive output each game. That cannot be ignored. I want to keep my eyes on that. I doubt we're going to come in and put 140 plus on OKC. But I do like the trend. I do like that we're starting to get more efficient looks for AD. I love that Cooper's starting to attack aggressively and look for his own shot. And the rumor that I'm starting here as your advisor is that Daniel Gafford will play. He will make his season debut tonight. The only reason he rested last night is so that we could go guns a-blazing against OKC. And he's going to play well. It's going to boost his value so that we can offer him, Klay Thompson, and Najee Marshall, probably a first-round pick for LaMelo Ball. And the next episode, maybe we'll dive a little bit deeper into the analytics about why I think LaMelo Ball could fit so well with this Dallas Mavericks roster. But before I wrap up, please hit like, subscribe, share this with your friends, share it with your mom that's a huge Mavs fan. I don't care. I just really love talking about the Mavs, and I love engaging with Mavs fans. That's all I got for you today. Y'all be good.